Well, Yemen Shiite rebels are calling for an offensive against that country's president. The rebels now holding the capital and 9 of the 21 provinces. And guess who the Yemeni president is blaming? Iran. Experts say Iran is spreading its influence at our expense. Of course, just as the U.S. and world powers are facing that deadline in only 10 days for a nuclear agreement. Here's Secretary of State John Kerry.
This has been a 2.5-year or more process. But we recognize that fundamental decisions have to be made now, and they don't get any easier as time goes by. It is time to make hard decisions. We want the right deal that would make the world, including the United States and our closest allies and partners, safer and more secure. And that is our test.
And what are those decisions? Lisa Daftari is a Mideast journalist and Fox News contributor who joins us now from Los Angeles. Lisa, you know, the Secretary of State says any deal hinges on what he calls political will. What does he mean by that?
It just looks as though this deal is being taken forward at the speed of light by President Obama and Secretary Kerry, while they ignore all the facts. If you connect the dots on the ground with Iranian involvement, whether it's in Syria, propping the Bashar al-Assad regime, whether it's in Yemen and supporting the Shiite rebels there, whether it's in Iraq, filling the political vacuum which the U.S. created, supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. I mean, these are all inconvenient facts. We're being warned by our allies in the region, by Jordan, by the UAE, by Saudi Arabia, by Egypt, not to go through with a bad deal that will normalize relations with Iran, all the meanwhile ignoring the political and the terrorism and the political instability that the Iranian regime is creating around the globe.
Well, it seems the president may be aware of some of that in the Huffington Post. He has an interview that just came out tonight that says that one thing that he wants is intrusive inspections of the Iranian facilities. I mean, is that even possible? They won't let us into some of the facilities now.
Right. We've seen no cooperation by the Iranian regime. Do we have to really give them more time in order for them to prove that they're going to cheat the system? Look, the Iranian regime has had 36 years to prove itself. And at every turn, they've been able to turn themselves on the people back at home, 75 million people who in 2009 told us where they stand and how they feel about their regime, whether it's, again, exporting terror and supporting suicide bombs around the globe, whether we're watching them all around these different countries in the region, again, creating political instability. Why would they now cooperate? And in the meantime, they're playing out the clock, they're extending deals, they're going forward with their nuclear agenda. They have been not cooperating with IAEA inspectors all along, becoming more provocative in their rhetoric and in their actions. Why do we have to keep giving them chances in order for them to prove us wrong?
You talk about being provocative in the rhetoric. You hear about the Supreme Leader, what Ali Khamenei supposedly said. Reuters saying that during his speech to celebrate the Persian New Year, someone yelled out, "Death to America." You know, this guy, he didn't say, no, don't say that. He didn't say that's not our attitude. He didn't say that's wrong. Apparently, according to Reuters, he repeated, "Death to America." So, Lisa, how do you deal with a regime whose spiritual and divine leader, whose the whole basis of this nuclear deal is based on that one man's decision, what he has in his head, when he sits there at that podium and, according to Reuters, says, "Death to America"?
You know, it's the bottom line here is that we've seen no behavioral change from the Iranian regime, and instead, we, the West, spearheaded by President Obama and this administration, have changed our expectations and our behavior toward the Iranian regime. And in the meantime, we've alienated the Iranian people who suffer from human rights abuses. We've alienated our allies in the region, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, all the people, all the countries that are warning us against this deal. And at the same time, the president is alienating lawmakers on both sides.
Well, yeah, but so what is this going to happen? I mean, at the bottom line, they got 10 days. And they had to have a final agreement, they say, in June.
Right, and you know what, if we don't push something through in the next 10 days, I promise you the Iranian regime will play out the clock and inevitably will have nuclear weapons. And if they don't get the nuclear weapons, at whatever deal that we do push through, we're going to leave them at threshold capability. The bottom line is we have to wake up and realize that the global threat here, the main threat here is not ISIS, but it's actually the Iranian regime. We've said about ISIS that they're the richest terror group. Well, let me tell you, Iran's pockets are much deeper. We've said that they're brutal, and we see the videos coming out from ISIS. In the last 36 years, years, the Iranian regime has been much more brutal to its people. And, you know, looking at their goals, they both want an Islamic State. The only fight between ISIS and the Iranian regime is who's going to lead up that Islamic State. So we have to open up our eyes before it's too late.
And only one of those groups say critics can have the potential for having a nuclear bomb, and that is what it's all about. Lisa Deftari from Los Angeles tonight. Thank you for joining us as always.